The prophecies did not mention the smell. They spoke of falling stars and the clash of celestial swords, of a sky torn asunder by the gods' fury. They never mentioned the mundane, lingering scent of the morning after. It is the first thing that greets you as you stir from a fitful sleep, a thick, cloying perfume of cold ash, damp stone, and something vaguely metallic, like a coin left in the rain for too long. The great city is quiet, but it is not the peaceful silence of dawn. It is the silence of a held breath, the collective quiet of 100,000 souls pretending to be asleep, hoping that if they don't move, the monster in the dark will simply pass them by. You are one of them. Your world ended yesterday, and yet, inconveniently, you woke up this morning. You rise slowly, every muscle a dull, protesting ache. The floorboards beneath your bare feet are gritty with plaster dust and splinters, a fine powder that coats everything now. Your bed for the night was a pile of dusty burlap sacks in the corner of a forgotten storeroom, a place you'd never have glanced at twice in your old life. Now it is a palace of safety. The air is cold enough to see your breath, a small, fleeting cloud in the gloom. Hunger is not a sharp pang, but a hollow, settled ache deep in your belly, a quiet companion that has been with you for days. You pull a rough-spun cloak tighter around your shoulders, its wool scratchy against your skin, and listen. You listen for the sound that now governs your entire existence, the heavy, rhythmic tread of hobnailed boots on cobblestone. Stepping out into the alley is like stepping into a gray watercolor painting where all the colors have bled together. The morning mist clings to the city, muffling sound and blurring the edges of the devastation. The grand avenues are choked with debris, not just the noble, tragic marble of shattered statues, but the pathetic detritus of everyday life. A splintered cartwheel, a single child's shoe half buried in the mud, a scattering of pages from a burned book, their lettering warped and meaningless. Above it all, hanging from windows and draped over balconies, are the new banners. Their color is a jarring, alien crimson, a violent slash against the muted tones of your world. They are a constant, silent shout, reminding you who is in charge now. You are a ghost in your own home. The sounds of the city have changed. Gone are the familiar morning chimes of the great chantry, the cheerful shouts of vendors setting up their stalls, the distant laughter of children on their way to tutelage. Those noises belong to a dead civilization. The new soundtrack is one of harsh, guttural commands in a language that sounds like stones being ground together. It is the creak of leather, the jangle of iron, the low whinny of horses that seem too large, too powerful for these streets. You learn to filter these sounds, to calculate their distance and direction, your mind a nervous, ever-vigilant abacus of threat assessment. To survive is to become an expert in the acoustics of your own occupation. Your first lesson in this new world is the art of invisibility. You walk with your shoulders hunched, your eyes fixed on the grimy cobblestones a few feet ahead of you. You make yourself smaller, less significant, a piece of the drab background. Eye contact is a luxury you can no longer afford. It is an invitation to be seen, and to be seen is to be questioned or beaten or simply erased for sport. It's a bit like trying to avoid a particularly aggressive charity canvasser on a busy street, except the consequence of failure isn't an awkward conversation, but a sword pommeled to the teeth. You are just a shadow, a ripple in the air, nothing to see here. You repeat this to yourself, a silent mantra against the pounding of your own heart. By midday, the weak, watery sun has burned through some of the mist, revealing the full scope of the city's new reality. You drift towards the market square, a place that once pulsed with vibrant life. Now, it is a husk. A few desperate vendors have set up makeshift stalls, selling not the spices and silks of the old world, but withered root vegetables, bags of mealy flour, and loaves of dense, dark bread that look more like stones than food. The currency is no longer the emperor's silver coin, now worthless, but whatever the conquerors will accept. A bit of scavenged metal, a usable tool, a moment of desperate, degrading service. You watch a woman trade a delicate silver locket, something clearly precious to her, for a single, bruised apple. She doesn't cry. No one cries anymore. You find yourself in a tavern, or what's left of one. The air inside is thick with the smell of unwashed bodies, stale ale, and a pervasive, underlying scent of fear. The room is crowded but quiet. People huddle over wooden cups of watered-down drink, their conversations a low, conspiratorial murmur. At the largest table, a group of the conquerors, soldiers, are drinking. They are immense, bearded men, clad in boiled leather and crude iron. They laugh loudly, their voices booming in the tense silence, and their merriment is more terrifying than their anger. They are a different species. They drink your wine, they sit in your chairs, but they do not belong here, and their very presence warps the fabric of the room, turning a place of comfort into a stage for your humiliation. As the afternoon wears on, a cold rain begins to fall. It is not a cleansing rain, but a miserable, persistent drizzle that seeps into everything, turning the dust and ash into a thick, gray sludge. The cold finds its way through the threadbare wool of your cloak, chilling you to the bone. You take shelter in the burned-out shell of a townhouse. The roof is gone, but 3 of the walls still stand. You can see the faint, flowered pattern on the plaster where a family once lived, where portraits once hung. You can almost smell the ghost of baking bread and hear the echo of a mother calling her children's names. This is the most dangerous part of survival: memory. To remember is to feel the full weight of what you have lost, and that weight can crush you more surely than any conqueror's mace. The light begins to fade, the sky turning from a bruised purple to a deep, starless black. Evening is the most dangerous time. A curfew is announced, not by the familiar tolling of a bell, but by the mournful, alien sound of a great bronze horn, a sound that seems to echo from the end of the world. The patrols become more frequent, their torchlight dancing menacingly in the narrow, winding streets. You must find a place to disappear, to melt back into the shadows before you are caught. The city you knew your entire life has become an unfamiliar labyrinth, a hunting ground where you are now the prey. The gnawing ache in your stomach has become a sharp, insistent pain, but food is a problem for tomorrow. Tonight's problem is simply staying alive until then. You find your way back to the storeroom, slipping through the darkness like a rat. You bar the door, not with a heavy lock, but with a splintered plank of wood that would offer no real resistance, only the illusion of security. You curl up on the burlap sacks, pulling the scratchy cloak around you, and listen to the sounds of the conquered city at night, a distant shout in that harsh, foreign tongue. The sudden, terrified barking of a dog quickly silenced, the steady, miserable drip of rain through the broken roof. This is the new lullaby of your civilization. The grand battle is over, a fever dream of smoke and steel. This, the quiet, cold, hungry darkness, is what comes after. Survival, you are learning, is not a single heroic act. It is 1,000 tiny, humiliating surrenders. It is learning the precise angle to bow your head, so it is seen as submission, not defiance. It is the skill of eating a stolen piece of bread so slowly that you can trick your stomach into feeling full. It is the quiet, brutal work of forgetting the person you used to be, sanding down the edges of your own soul until you are smooth, featureless, and unnoticeable. You close your eyes, the scent of dust and damp in your nostrils. You have survived one more day. And as you drift into an uneasy sleep, you wonder how many more days you can bear. If you are still with me, comment with the time you finally drifted off. The darkness behind your eyelids is absolute. There are no dreams of the past, no visions of a better future. There is only the cold, the hunger, and the deep, animal instinct to see the sun rise one more time. The emperor is dead. The gods are silent. The 1,000-year empire is a memory being actively erased, street by street, soul by soul. And you are here, breathing quietly in the dark, your entire world shrunk to the space of this small, cold room. This is the true story of the end of the world. Not a bang, but a long, slow, grinding fade to gray. You only need to like this if it truly helped you find a moment of quiet in the noise. Now, just breathe. Inhale the stillness. Exhale the day. There is nothing else to do. The world does not stop for grief. It simply gets heavier. The day after the end of the world is followed by another day, and another, each one a copy of the last, a testament to the brutal persistence of life. Your survival is no longer about hiding in storerooms or flinching at shadows. It has become a matter of labor, of finding a place in the new machine that is grinding your city to dust. You are no longer a citizen, a scholar, a merchant, or a parent. You are a pair of hands, a strong back, a cog in a mechanism you do not understand and are not meant to. Your new identity is forged not in a temple, but in the dark, repetitive rhythm of relentless, mind-numbing work. This is the true second death of your civilization, the death of purpose. You are a miner now. Or perhaps you always were, but the distinction between working for an emperor and working for a conqueror has become, academically and painfully, irrelevant. Your day begins before the sun, in a cold, damp blackness that is merely a preview of the deeper blackness to come. You descend into the earth's throat on a rickety lift, the chain groaning a mournful song of protest. The air grows thick and cold, smelling of wet stone, coal dust, and the faint, metallic tang of human sweat. Down here, the war never happened. The rock is eternal, indifferent to the squabbles of surface dwellers. Your world shrinks to the small, flickering halo of the tallow lamp on your helmet, a weak and sputtering star in a private universe of suffocating darkness. The rhythm begins. It is the only music left. The sharp, jarring impact of the pickaxe against the coal face, a loud, cracking thud. Then the follow-through, the scraping sound as you pull the loosened chunks of black rock away from the wall. Con a stud, scrape, thud, scrape. Your shoulders burn with a fire that never goes out. Your arms, once used to holding a book or a child, are now thick, knotted cords of protesting muscle. The dust coats your tongue, your throat, the inside of your lungs. You learn to breathe it, to accept it as a part of you. It is a slow and patient poison, a promise of a rattling, wheezing death that is years away, an eternity in this new age. You are not alone in this darkness, but you might as well be. To your left, an old man named Alara, his face a roadmap of grime and wrinkles, swings his own pickaxe with a weary, practiced economy of motion. He doesn't waste a single movement. He has been down here for 40 years, and his only companion is a deep, wet cough that echoes in the tunnels, a sound like gravel being churned in a bucket of water. He is mining for the future of a grandson he will barely see, a boy who will likely inherit his cough and his pickaxe. You do not speak. There is no air to spare for words. There is only the rhythm, thud, scrape, thud, scrape. The midday break is a mockery of rest. You sit on a cold, damp rock, your back pressed against the unyielding wall of the tunnel. You extinguish your lamp to save the precious tallow, plunging yourself into an absolute, disorienting blackness. You eat your meal by touch, a lump of dense, sour bread and a piece of hard, salty cheese. You wash it down with a swig of lukewarm water from a leather flask, water that tastes of iron and earth. For 10 minutes, the rhythm stops. The silence is more deafening than the noise. It is a heavy, pressing silence, filled with the sound of your own ragged breathing and Alara's relentless, hacking cough. Then a rough voice echoes down the tunnel, a command in the conqueror's guttural tongue, and the break is over. You relight your lamp, the small flame chasing away the total blackness, replacing it with the familiar dancing shadows. You pick up the tool. It feels heavier than before. Your muscles have cooled and stiffened, and the first few swings are pure agony. But soon, you fall back into the trance, the mindless, soul-crushing cadence that governs your existence in the deep dark. You are just the instrument that holds the pickaxe. You are the arm that swings. You are the sound of iron meeting stone. Thud, scrape, thud, scrape. The world above, with its cruel crimson banners and foreign soldiers, ceases to exist. There is only the rock. The end of the shift is a slow, agonizing ascent back to the surface. You emerge from the mouth of the mine like a ghost being born into a gray, washed-out world. You blink against the weak afternoon light, your eyes streaming. The air, which you once thought of as dirty city air, now feels impossibly clean and thin. You are coated head to toe in a fine black dust, a second skin that never truly washes off. You walk with a permanent stoop, your back aching in protest. You do not look at the faces of the other miners. They are mirrors of your own exhaustion, your own hollowed-out despair. You are all just shades of gray, trudging home to a brief, dreamless sleep before the darkness calls you back. As you walk through the cramped streets, your path takes you past the city's bakeries, and the scent offers a different kind of life, a different kind of prison. You are a baker now. Your world is not cold and dark, but suffocatingly hot and filled with a hazy, flour-dusted light. The air is thick with the sweet, cloying smell of yeast and the acrid smoke from the great brick ovens that burn day and night. The heat is a physical presence, a heavy blanket that saps the strength from your limbs and makes sweat run in rivers down your back, carving clean paths through the permanent layer of white flour that coats your skin. This is a different kind of hell, one made of fire and endless, aching work. Your rhythm is not the sharp strike of a pickaxe, but the soft, wet, percussive beat of dough on a wooden table. Push, fold, turn, slap. Push, fold, turn, slap. Your weapon is not a tool of iron, but your own body. You use the weight of your shoulders, the strength of your back, to work the life into the massive mounds of dough. It is a strange, intimate violence. The dough is a living thing beneath your hands, resisting, then yielding, then resisting again. You wrestle with it for hours, your muscles screaming, your wrists aching, until it is smooth and pliant and ready for the fire. The work is relentless, a constant battle against time and heat. You remember, in the before time, the joy of baking, the delicate pastries, the light, airy loaves for festivals, the sweet cakes for birthdays. Now, you bake only two things. For the conquerors, you bake fine, white loaves, using the best flour that is delivered under armed guard. These loaves are perfect, their crusts golden brown, their scent, a painful reminder of a world of simple luxuries. For your own people, you bake the rest. You use the coarse, gritty flour, mixed with sawdust and chalk to make it go further. The result is a dense, grayish brick of a loaf that sits heavy in the stomach. It is sustenance, but it is not food. It is an edible symbol of your subjugation. Beside you, a young man named Kale works in a silent fury. His face is perpetually grim, his jaw set. He was once an apprentice to the finest pastry chef in the capital, his hands capable of spinning sugar into delicate, impossible flours. Now those same hands pound and shape the gritty dough for the people's bread. He never looks at the soldiers who come to collect the garrison's portion. He just places the warm, fragrant loaves on the counter and turns away, his entire body radiating a silent, impotent hatred. To look them in the eye would be to acknowledge them, and Kale's last remaining freedom is his refusal to see his masters. Your break is a moment stolen by the open door of the bakery, gulping in air that isn't thick with flour and smoke. You sit on a crate, your back screaming in protest, and eat the heel of one of the gray loaves. It is dry and tasteless, and you have to chew for a long time to be able to swallow it. You drink water that has been warmed by the ambient heat of the room. You watch the city pass by in a muted, weary parade, the stooped figures of the miners returning from the pit, the distant, rhythmic clang of a blacksmith, the tired shuffle of 1,000 broken people. Then the master baker calls your name, and the break is over. You return to the heat, to the dough, to the rhythm. Push, fold, turn, slap. The day ends not when you are tired, but when the last loaf has been pulled from the oven. You stumble out into the cool evening air, your skin sticky with sweat and flour, your clothes smelling of smoke. The heat of the ovens still radiates from your very bones. You walk home, your body a single, unified ache. You pass a woman mending fishing nets by the weak light of a lantern, and for a moment you are her. You are the fisherman, and your world smells of salt and decay. The cold, wet slap of the waves against the hull of your small boat is the metronome of your life. You are a fisherman. Your day begins in the deepest dark. The star is still sharp and cold in the sky. You push your boat out into the frigid, inky water. The only sounds, the creak of the oarlocks and the gentle lapping of the harbor against the stone quay. The sea air is a knife, sharp and clean, but it carries a permanent chill that seeps into your bones and never truly leaves. Your hands are always cold, always wet. They are chapped and raw, with deep cracks in the knuckles that sting with the salt water. You wear layers of rough wool, but the dampness finds its way in, a constant, miserable companion. The sea is a vast, gray, indifferent creature, and you are a tiny speck upon its back. The work is a brutal tug of war with the ocean. You cast your nets, their weights pulling them down into the unseen depths. And then you wait. You drift on the heaving water, your small boat a cradle rocked by a careless giant. When the time is right, the hauling begins. It is a rhythm of pure, brute force. Niemals Anthausen. Heave, brace. Heave, brace. You pull the heavy, waterlogged nets in hand over hand, your back and legs straining against the dead weight. The ropes are rough and slick with sea slime, cutting into your palms even through their calluses. Your muscles burn, your breath comes in ragged gasps. Every inch of net is a victory won through pain. Sometimes the nets are full, a writhing silver mass of panic and desperation. The flapping of 1,000 tails is a frantic, wet applause for your labor. Other times, they come up nearly empty, holding only a few sad-looking fish and a tangle of dark, slimy seaweed. The sea gives what it will, and you take what you are given. But your catch is no longer your own. The conquerors' patrol boats motor through the fishing grounds, their engines a jarring, unnatural roar in the quiet of the dawn. They claim the best of your catch as a tax, leaving you with the small, bony fish that are barely worth the effort of cooking. An old man named Finn fishes in the boat next to yours. His face is a leathery mask, tanned and cracked by a lifetime of sun and salt spray. He never speaks to you, but he mutters constantly, to the sea, to the gulls, to the fish in his nets. He is a part of this landscape, as much as the rocks and the waves. He mends his nets with gnarled, arthritic fingers, his movements slow but certain. He watches the patrol boat approach with eyes that hold no fear, no anger, only a profound, bottomless weariness. He has seen empires rise and fall like the tides. This is just another wave, and he will endure it until the sea finally claims him. Your meal is eaten on the boat. You take one of the small, bony fish you are allowed to keep, gut it with a quick, practiced slice of your knife, and eat it raw. The flesh is cold and briny, the taste of the ocean itself. It is not pleasant, but it is fuel. You drink from a flask of water that is always slightly salty, no matter how carefully you fill it ashore. You stare out at the horizon, a blurry line between the gray water and the gray sky. There is a strange, desolate peace in the emptiness. Out here, you are small and insignificant, and for a few moments, that feels like a kind of freedom. Then you feel the familiar ache in your shoulders, and you remember the nets that still need mending. You row back to shore as the sun is beginning its descent, a weak orange smear in the west. Your arms feel like lead. Your back is a column of fire. You sell your meager, leftover catch at the docks for a few worthless coins, just enough to buy another gray loaf from the baker and a little oil for your lamp. You pass the great textile mill on your way home, and the roar from within is the sound of 1,000 hungry beasts. You feel the vibration through the soles of your worn-out boots, and for the next part of your day, you are inside. You are a woman who works the looms. You are a spinner, a weaver, a factory woman. Your world is a single cavernous room, so vast that the far wall is lost in a hazy mist. But this is not the mist of the sea. It is a fog of cotton dust and lint that hangs perpetually in the air, catching the light from the high, grimy windows in pale, ghostly shafts. The air is warm and dry, and it smells of machine oil, raw cotton, and human sweat, and it is loud. The noise is a physical assault, a relentless, deafening thunder that shakes the floorboards and vibrates deep inside your chest. It is the sound of hundreds of mechanical looms, a symphony of chaos. Clack, 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 clack. This is not a rhythm you can work with. It is a rhythm that works upon you, that dictates your every move. You do not operate the machine. You serve it. You stand for 12 hours, your feet swelling and aching on the hard wooden floor. Your job is to watch the threads, and when one snaps, you must dart in, your fingers a blur, to tie it back together before the flaw can ruin the cloth. It is a high-speed, high-stakes dance. Your movements must be precise, economical, and lightning fast. A moment of hesitation, a clumsy fumble, and the machine will punish you. It will take a finger or a hand, or pull your hair and scalp into its unforgiving gears. The dust is the silent killer. You breathe it in all day, every day. It settles in your lungs, a slow-acting plague that the old-timers call loom fever. You see it in the older women, their constant, shallow coughs, their pale, ghostly complexions. You feel it yourself, a tickle in the back of your throat that never goes away. At night, you cough up gray phlegm. The factory provides the cloth for the conquerors, new uniforms, for their crimson banners, for the tents of their ever-expanding barracks. You are literally weaving the fabric of your own occupation, thread by painful thread. Beside you works a girl named Lyra. She cannot be more than 10 years old, but her face has the grim, serious set of a woman 3 times her age. Her small, nimble fingers are perfect for tying the delicate threads, and she moves with a speed and grace that is both mesmerizing and horrifying. She has been here since she was 7. She does not remember a world without the thunder of the looms. This noise is the soundtrack to her entire life. Sometimes you see her humming to herself, a tiny, silent song that no one can hear above the din. It is her secret, a small pocket of humanity she keeps safe from the machine. The break is 5 minutes of glorious, ringing silence. You and the other women file out into a narrow, brick-lined alley behind the mill. You lean against the wall, eyes closed, letting the quiet wash over you. The sudden absence of noise is so profound it makes your ears ache. You cough, trying to clear the dust from your lungs. You drink some water and share a piece of dry bread with Lyra, who eats with a ravenous, bird-like intensity. No one speaks much. There is nothing to say that the noise inside has not already said. Then a bell clangs, a harsh, metallic sound, and the 5 minutes are up. You file back into the roaring thunder. Clack, clack, whir. When the final bell rings, you stumble out into the twilight, your head buzzing, your ears ringing. The relative quiet of the city street feels like a whisper. You are tired in a way that goes beyond the physical. It is a soul-deep exhaustion, a weariness of the spirit. You look up, past the smoking chimneys of the factories and the bakeries, and you see a small, dark figure etched against the dying light of the sky. A boy on a rooftop. You are that boy. You are a chimney sweep, and your world is a vertical one, a narrow passage between the hearth and the sky. You are a chimney sweep. Your world is tight, dark, and vertical. It smells of old smoke, bitter creosote, and the faint, unsettling scent of bird droppings. You are small for your age, which is the only qualification for this job. You are an expert in claustrophobia. Your work begins by entering a home, now likely occupied by a conqueror's officer, your presence tolerated as a necessary, if dirty, inconvenience. You lay down a grimy sheet to protect their stolen carpets, and then you strip down to your trousers. Your skin is your uniform, already stained a semi-permanent gray with old soot. Then you look up the flue, into the black gullet of the chimney, and you begin to climb. The rhythm is a slow, painful grind. Scrape, push, breathe. Scrape, push, breathe. You use your knees and elbows to wedge yourself against the rough brick, inching your way upward. The soot rains down on you, getting in your eyes, your mouth, your nose. It is a dry, choking powder that makes you want to cough, but a real cough could make you lose your grip and fall, so you hold it in, your lungs burning. Splinters of brick and sharp edges of mortar tear at your bare skin. It is a slow, agonizing exfoliation. You are not cleaning the chimney so much as being scoured by it. The dangers are intimate and constant. The chimney might narrow unexpectedly, trapping you. A loose brick could give way. Or, worst of all, the residents might forget you are up there and light a fire. It has happened before. You have heard the stories, whispered among the other sweeps, of boys who were cooked alive in the flues. So you work fast, but not too fast. Your tools are a set of stiff brushes you push ahead of you, dislodging the thick, flammable crust of soot. The black snow falls past you, a sign of your progress, a reminder of the filth you are removing so that your new masters can be warm and comfortable. You are a ghost in the city's arteries. You are an invisible servant. From the top of the chimney, you get a view of the world no one else sees. You emerge into the wind and the light, a black creature reborn from the darkness, and you can see the entire conquered city laid out below you. You see the patrols in the streets, the crimson banners hanging limp in the still air, the queues for bread. You see the private courtyards of the wealthy, where officers drink wine and laugh. You are above it all, a secret, silent observer. It is a lonely, godlike perspective, and it is the only power you have. There is no break in this job. There is only the up and the down. When you are finished, you slide back down the flue, a controlled fall, emerging into the room in a cloud of black dust. You are a sight of horror, a small, soot-caked demon. The lady of the house, or her servant, will hold out a single coin for you, pinching it between her thumb and forefinger so as not to touch your filthy hand. You take the coin, your payment, for a day of risking your life. You gather your sheet and your brushes and leave, leaving black handprints on the door. You will use the coin to buy bread, and then you will find a fountain to wash off the outer layer of grime, though the soot that has settled in your lungs will never come out. As you walk away, a heavy cart rumbles past, its wheels groaning in the deep ruts of the street. The woman driving it stares straight ahead, her face a mask of indifference. You see the strain in her arms as she holds the reins, the tension in her back. And you are her. You are the carter, and your job is to move the broken pieces of your world from one place to another. Your life is a slow, jolting journey through the ruins of everything you have ever known. You are a carter. Your world is the city itself, seen from the uncomfortable perch of a wooden driver's seat. It smells of wet horse, old leather, and whatever you happen to be hauling that day. Sometimes it is flour for the bakers, or fish from the docks. Sometimes it is lumber for the conquerors, new fortifications. And sometimes, in the days after the siege, it was the bodies of the dead. Your constant companion is a tired old horse named Patches, whose ribs show through his dull coat, and who walks with the same weary resignation that you feel in your own bones. Your domain is the mud, the cobblestones, the endless ruined streets. Your rhythm is the slow, ponderous beat of the journey. Jolt, creak, plod. Jolt, creak, plod. The iron-rimmed wheels of your cart find every pothole, every loose stone, sending a jarring shock up your spine. The harness creaks a steady, monotonous complaint. The horse's hooves make a hollow, plodding sound on the stones. You move through the city like a sluggish drop of blood in a dying body, a vital but uncelebrated part of the new order. You are always moving, but you are never going anywhere that matters. You are simply tracing the lines of your cage, day after day. You are a witness to everything. You see the public punishments in the main square. You see the desperate faces of the hungry. You see the arrogance of the soldiers as they shove your people out of their way. You see the children who play in the rubble, their games a strange and disturbing imitation of the violence they have witnessed. You see it all from your driver's seat, and you learn to see it without feeling. To feel would be to break. Your face becomes a stony, impassive mask. Your silence is your shield, your armor against the daily onslaught of misery. Your cart was your father's. He was a proud man who transported fine silks and spices. He was killed on the second day of the invasion, trying to defend his home with a wood axe. Now you, his daughter Brenna, drive his cart, hauling rubble and refuse. You speak more to Patches than to any human. You murmur encouragement to him as he strains to pull a heavy load up a steep hill. You stroke his nose when you stop to let him drink from a public trough. He is the only living creature who shares your burden, who understands the feel of the harness and the endlessness of the road. Your meal is eaten on the move. An onion, a hunk of hard cheese, and a piece of the baker's gray bread. You hold the reins with your knees as you eat, your eyes always scanning the street ahead for patrols, for trouble. You do not stop. To stop is to become a target, to invite questions or abuse. As long as you are moving, you have a purpose. You are a carter, doing your job. You are a piece of the scenery, too mundane to be noticed. And in this new world, to be mundane is to be safe. The sun begins to set, casting long, distorted shadows across the broken city. The curfew horn will sound soon. Chantrote, creak, plod. You guide Patches toward the stables, the end of another day's slow, painful circle. The city is a machine designed to break you, and it has 1,000 different ways to do it. You see it from your cart. A man, balanced precariously on a high scaffolding, is repairing the facade of a building seized by a conqueror's captain. He reaches too far, a single, fatal inch. There is the sharp crack of a splintering plank, a sound that is somehow both loud and intimate. A brief, choked cry is swallowed by the city's hum. He falls, not like a hero in a ballad, but like a sack of laundry, a clumsy, boneless tumble that ends with a wet final thud on the cobblestones below. No one rushes to help. The overseer merely glances down, makes a note on a wax tablet, and barks an order for the body to be moved. It is an inconvenience, a delay in the schedule, a sudden and messy traffic obstruction. Efficiency, after all, is the cardinal virtue of the new regime. Back in the textile mill, the machine does not need to be clumsy. Its violence is precise and engineered. The thunder of the looms is a constant, a sound that scours the mind of thought, leaving only the rhythm of the work. Then, a new sound pierces the din. It is a high, thin shriek of pure agony. You turn your head and see it. The young girl, Lyra, her face a white mask of terror, has been caught. Her long hair, having escaped its bindings, was snagged by the flying shuttle. In less than a second, the machine pulled her head forward, slamming her face into the hard oak frame, while the relentless gears tore a bloody patch of scalp from her skull. The loom does not stop. It continues its violent, indifferent dance, weaving a single, crimson thread into the otherwise perfect bolt of cloth. The overseer curses the ruined fabric before he even bothers to pull the girl free. The next day, there is a new girl in Lyra's place, her hair shorn to the scalp. In the mine, the dangers are more elemental, more ancient. The darkness is not merely an absence of light, it is a physical pressure. It is a hungry void that waits for a single mistake. One day, a miner, working in a new tunnel, strikes a pocket of fire damp, the colorless, odorless ghost that haunts these depths. His lamp, a tiny, flickering spark of life, becomes a catalyst for death. There is no loud explosion, just a sudden, silent whoosh of blue flame that rolls down the tunnel, a searing, hungry wave that cooks the air from your lungs and melts the skin from your bones. It is followed by a deep, groaning shudder from the earth itself as the support timbers, charred and weakened, give way. The tunnel collapses. For those not touched by the fire, the end is a slow, suffocating press of 1,000,000 tons of rock and silence. Up on the surface, they will mark the tunnel as unsafe. Down below, you are simply part of the geology now. This constant threat of a sudden, violent end makes the slow, quiet dangers seem almost quaint by comparison. And the slowest danger of all is the food. You stand in the bakery, kneading the people's bread, and you know its secrets. The conquerors demand their white loaves, so the best flour is reserved for them. For your people, the flour is stretched. You are the one who mixes in the fine, white powder of ground chalk, or the gritty meal of dried beans. On bad weeks it is sawdust, swept from the floor of the carpenter's shop. And the most prized adulterant, the one that makes the bread look deceptively white and pure, is alum. It's a chemical salt that fools the eye, but it twists the gut and binds the bowels, a slow-acting poison sold as sustenance. You are not just a baker. You are an alchemist of misery, turning sawdust and lies into a pale, heavy loaf that offers the illusion of life while subtly stealing it away. This quiet war is being waged on every plate and in every cup. The milk sold in the market is thin and bluish, bulked out with water from the public well, with a dash of chalk dust to restore its cloudy whiteness. The beer in the tavern, a drink meant to bring a moment of cheer, is a bitter science of deception. The brewers, short on hops and malt, have learned to imitate its flavor with strange and sinister additions. A pinch of copperas to give the illusion of a fine, foamy head. A bit of tobacco to add a smoky depth. And for that signature bitter bite, they use Cocculus indicus, a berry that also happens to be a paralytic poison. It numbs the tongue, the mind, and the spirit. It is a cheap and effective tool of control, ensuring the conquered populace is too sick and stupefied to ever contemplate rebellion. You drink to forget your misery, never knowing your drink is the cause of tomorrow's. The butcher's stall is a theater of morbid creativity. You see meat that is unnaturally red, its color restored not by freshness, but by a wash of saltpeter. You smell the faint, sweet scent of decay barely masked by the heavy use of cloves and other strong spices. The choicest cuts go to the conqueror's garrisons, of course. For you, there is the meat of animals who died of disease, their tumors and abscesses cleverly carved away. The butcher, a man who was once a master of his craft, is now a sculptor of rot, his skill dedicated to making the inedible appear edible for just long enough to sell it. To survive the sword and the loom is one thing. To survive your dinner is another entirely. It is a quiet, daily gamble, a game of chance played with your own intestines. In this city, the most dangerous weapon is a fork. And when the work accidents and the poisoned food inevitably make you sick, you enter a new world of absurdity, a realm where fear and ignorance conspire to create their own special brand of suffering. A toothache, that small, localized agony, becomes a source of profound terror. There are no dentists, only whispers and superstitions. An old woman advises you to make a poultice of crushed beetles and apply it to your jaw. A man swears the only cure is to find a frog in a graveyard at midnight, spit in its mouth, and ask it to take your pain away. The prevailing theory is that a tiny worm is living in the root of your tooth, and the only way to kill it is to inhale the smoke of burning henbane seeds, a practice that is more likely to make you hallucinate than to cure your ache. Your pain becomes a canvas for the village's collective madness. The loom fever, that persistent, dusty cough that plagues the textile workers, has 100 different cures, each one more useless than the last. You can buy a potion from a street vendor that is little more than honey, water, and a generous portion of cheap gin. It makes you feel better for an hour, but the cough always returns. Another popular remedy is a syrup made from boiled snails, thought to soothe the lungs with their slime. Or you might be told to wear a necklace of dried woodlice, their little bodies meant to draw the sickness out of you. You watch your fellow workers, their chests rattling with each breath, dutifully swallowing these concoctions, their faith in the absurd a testament to their desperation. The dust in their lungs is a scientific fact. The snails are a prayer. For more serious ailments, the official-sounding theories are even more dangerous. The few remaining physicians, trained in the old ways, speak of the 4 humors. Your fever, they explain, is caused by an excess of blood. Your melancholy is an overabundance of black bile. The solution, therefore, is simple. You must be rebalanced. This is achieved through bleeding. A barber surgeon, his hands stained with the evidence of his past failures, will open a vein in your arm and drain a pint of your blood into a brass bowl. You are already weak from malnutrition and overwork, and this prescribed cure weakens you further, leaving you pale and trembling but supposedly in balance. It is a perfect closed system of logic, where the cure only makes the patient more susceptible to the next disease. In the absence of any real power, you and your people have turned to the power of ritual. You see small secret signs everywhere. A bundle of herbs tied over a doorway to ward off the conquerors, bad spirits. An arrangement of stones in a window box meant to bring good luck. People mutter charms under their breath when a patrol passes, believing the right combination of ancient words can make them invisible. It is a quiet, desperate magic. These rituals do nothing to change the physical reality of the occupation, but they provide a fragile sense of control. They are the last bastion of a culture that is being systematically erased, a secret language of hope, spoken in a world that has forgotten the word. In a city governed by brute force, the only weapon you have left is superstition. But your own body is a fragile machine, and in a city where every meal is a gamble and every neighbor is a potential carrier of disease, it is a machine that is destined to break. The first sign is a cough, not the dusty hacking cough of the miner or the weaver, but something deeper, more intimate. It is a wet, tearing sound that seems to come from the very bottom of your lungs, and it brings with it a small, shocking blossom of bright red blood on your handkerchief. This is the consumption, the white plague. It is a poet's disease in books, a romantic fading away. In reality, it is a slow, undignified drowning in your own fluids. You feel a constant, low-grade fever that makes the world seem hazy and unreal, and a weariness so profound that climbing a single flight of stairs feels like scaling a mountain. The disease eats you from the inside out, patiently, methodically, until you are nothing but a pale, skeletal ghost haunting the shell of your own body. Or perhaps the sickness comes on like a thunderclap. One morning you wake up with a skull-splitting headache and a fever that sets your skin on fire. This is typhus, the jail fever, a disease born of filth and carried in the seams of your clothing by tiny, unseen lice. Your mind begins to fray at the edges. You drift in and out of a delirious dream state, muttering nonsense to figures only you can see. A faint, rose-colored rash blooms across your chest and back. The ghost of a garden on your tormented skin. You are too weak to move, too confused to eat. Your world shrinks to the straw pallet beneath you and the terrifying, nonsensical theater playing out inside your own head. It is a swift and brutal illness, a fire that either burns itself out, leaving you a weak and trembling survivor, or consumes you entirely in a matter of days. Then there is the speckled monster, the most feared of all. Smallpox announces its arrival with a high fever and a savage ache in your back and limbs, as if your very bones are being ground to dust. Then, after a few days of this misery, the true horror begins. A rash appears on your face and hands, and quickly spreads to cover your entire body. But these are not the gentle rose spots of typhus. These are hard, red bumps that swell over the course of a week into ripe, pus-filled blisters, called pustules. Your face becomes an unrecognizable lumpy mask. The pustules join together, forming great weeping sheets of infection. The smell is unbearable, a uniquely Swedish cloying scent of rot and decay. If you survive, the monster will leave its mark on you forever, your skin a pitted, scarred landscape, a permanent reminder of your ordeal. You are lucky. Your ordeal is to work where these people end up. You work in the House of Quiet Sorrows. You are no longer a miner or a baker. You are an orderly in what passes for a hospital. It is not a place of healing. It is a warehouse for the dying. The building is a repurposed monastery, its grand, vaulted ceilings and stone archways, a cruel architectural joke. The high windows, once filled with stained glass telling stories of the gods, are now grimy with the soot of 1,000 cooking fires, letting in only a weak, gray, judgmental light. The air inside is a thick, invisible stew. It smells of unwashed bodies, stale sweat, vomit, human waste, and the sharp, vinegary tang of cheap wine used as a disinfectant. Overlaid on it all is the faint, metallic scent of blood and the unmistakable, sickly sweet odor of decaying flesh. This is the first thing you notice when you arrive before dawn, and the last thing you smell when you collapse into your own straw pallet at night. Your day begins with a bucket, two in fact. One is filled with cold water from the courtyard well, and the other is empty. Your first task is to make your rounds, emptying the chamber pots from beneath the pallets of those too weak to move. It is a task of profound intimacy and complete detachment. You avert your eyes, you hold your breath, you move with a practiced, mechanical efficiency. You have learned to see the contents of the pots, not as human misery, but as a simple diagnostic tool. The dark, tarry stool of internal bleeding, the watery flux of dysentery, the cloudy, foul-smelling urine of a fever. You are a connoisseur of human effluent, an unpaid and unappreciated oracle of the bowels. This is your morning ritual, a baptism in the grim reality of your new profession. The main ward is a single, cavernous hall. There are no beds, only straw pallets laid out in neat, miserable rows on the cold stone floor. A single, large fireplace at one end of the room provides the only heat, and a brutal social hierarchy has formed around it. The patients with a few coins to bribe you, or those who are not yet expected to die, get the coveted spots near the fire. The newcomers, the destitute, and the obviously terminal are relegated to the far end of the hall, where a constant, chilling draft blows in from under the poorly fitting doors. There are perhaps 60 souls in this room, a small city of the sick. The only sound is a constant low symphony of suffering, a chorus of wet, ragged coughs, punctuated by soft moans and the occasional delirious muttering. You move from pallet to pallet, a ghost in gray homespun. Your job is to offer a sip of water, to wipe a feverish brow with a damp rag, to adjust a rough wool blanket. You are not a healer. You are a creature of comfort, and the comfort you offer is so small, so laughably inadequate, that it feels like a form of cruelty. You see the consumption in the corner, a young woman who was once a scribe, her fingers still stained with ink. She coughs, and you are there with the rag to catch the blood. She looks at the bright crimson stain, with an expression not of fear, but of weary resignation. She knows what it means. You both do. You say nothing, just take the rag and move on. Further down the row is a man in the grip of typhus. He is a carter, his body still thick with muscle, but his eyes are wide and vacant, staring at some horror on the ceiling that only he can see. He plucks at his blanket with restless, trembling fingers and speaks to his long-dead wife, his voice a low, conspiratorial whisper. His skin is burning hot to the touch. You try to get him to drink some water, but he pushes the cup away, spilling it on the straw. There is nothing to be done for him. His battle is not being fought here in this hall, but in the ruined landscape of his own mind. You can only ensure he doesn't harm himself or the patient next to him. In a small, isolated chamber off the main hall, you deal with the speckled monster. You must wear a thick cloth mask over your nose and mouth, soaked in vinegar, a useless but psychologically comforting ritual. The patient is a boy, no older than 10, or at least you think it's a boy. It is difficult to tell. His entire body is a swollen, weeping mass of pustules. His eyes are swollen shut. He breathes in shallow, rattling gasps. The room is kept dark, as the light is said to agitate the spirit and worsen the disease. The smell in this small, enclosed space is so overpowering it makes your eyes water. Your only job here is to leave a bowl of water and a piece of bread within his reach, should he have a moment of lucidity, and then to leave as quickly as possible. To linger here is to court death. The curatrix of this establishment arrives around mid-morning. She is not a physician in the old sense. She is a woman named Agnes, a former midwife with gnarled, capable hands and eyes that have seen every possible form of human suffering. She carries no bag of fancy instruments, only a basket of herbs and a sharp, discerning gaze. Her authority is absolute, derived not from a university degree, but from the simple fact that she has survived longer than most. She moves through the ward with a slow, deliberate pace, a queen reviewing her tattered, broken troops. She is the closest thing to a god this place has. Her methods are a pragmatic blend of ancient wisdom and pure guesswork. She will press her ear to a patient's chest and listen, not for heartbeats, but for the sound of water in the lungs. She will examine the color of a patient's tongue, the clarity of their eyes, the smell of their breath. From these signs, she makes her pronouncements. This one has the burning sickness, she will say, pointing to the typhus patient. This one's humors are in rebellion. Her diagnoses are less medical statements and more grim, poetic summaries of the inevitable. She offers no false hope. Her role is not to cure, but to manage the process of dying. For the consumption, she prescribes a tea made from colt's foot and horehound to soothe the cough. It does nothing to stop the disease, but it provides a moment of warm, sweet relief, a brief armistice in the body's civil war. For the fevers, she advocates for sweating. The patient is covered in a mountain of heavy wool blankets, and you are instructed to feed them hot, peppery broth. The goal is to break the fever, to drive the evil sickness out through the pores. Sometimes, this violent shock to the system works. More often, it simply exhausts the patient's already depleted reserves of strength, hastening their journey to the grave. Then there are the leeches. Agnes keeps a large clay jar of them in a cool, dark corner. They are her pride and joy, her writhing, blood-sucking army. For a headache, a swollen joint, or a general feeling of malaise, the prescription is the same. You are the one who has to apply them. You take one of the slimy, black creatures and place it on the patient's skin. It latches on, its bite a small, sharp prick, and begins to swell, growing fat and content on the patient's bad blood. It is a disgusting, medieval practice that feels more like a punishment than a cure. But the patients submit to it with a strange, passive faith. In a world of chaos, the deliberate, focused pain of the leech feels like something is being done. Midday brings the day's single meal. It is a thin, watery gruel made from oats or barley, boiled for hours in a great iron pot over the main fire. It is gray, tasteless, and has the consistency of wallpaper paste. This is not food. It is a biological imperative, a minimal offering to the failing machinery of the body. You ladle it into wooden bowls and carry it to the patients. Many are too weak to feed themselves, so you sit beside them, spooning the warm slurry into their mouths, trying not to spill it on their chins. Some refuse to eat, having already surrendered. Others, in the grip of delirium, see poison in the bowl and fight you. It is a slow, frustrating, and deeply depressing ritual. Sometimes there is surgery. This is not performed by Agnes, but by a man named Gregor, a former butcher who has found a new and profitable application for his skills with a blade. Today's patient is a quarryman, brought in with a leg crushed by a fall of rock. The limb is a swollen purple mess, and the smell of gangrene is already beginning to cling to it. Gregor's diagnosis is swift and simple. It must come off. There is no anesthetic, of course. There is only a half bottle of raw, burning spirit, which the man drinks down in a few desperate gulps. He is then held down on a sturdy wooden table by you and two other orderlies. He is given a thick leather strap to bite down on. Gregor works with a brutal, terrifying speed. He uses a small, sharp knife to cut through the skin and muscle, his movements quick and economical. The quarryman's muffled screams vibrate through the table, through your arms, into your own teeth. Then Gregor takes up the saw. The sound is the stuff of nightmares, a wet, grating noise as the teeth bite into the living bone. It seems to go on for an eternity, but it is over in less than a minute. The severed leg is dropped into a bucket with a sickening thud. But the ordeal is not over. The final step is to stop the bleeding. Gregor takes a flat iron from the fire, its tip glowing a dull cherry red. He presses it against the raw, weeping stump. There is a loud hiss, the smell of cooking meat, and the man finally, mercifully, passes out from the pain. His chances of surviving the inevitable infection are less than 1 in 3. The afternoon is the worst time. The brief energy of the morning has faded. The sun, at its highest point, sends dusty shafts of light into the hall, illuminating the floating motes of dust and disease. This is the time of day when the flies are most active. A buzzing, black swarm that settles on the sick, crawling on their faces, in the corners of their eyes, on their open sores. You move through the ward with a swatch of cloth, waving them away, but it is a hopeless, Sisyphean task. They always return. The heat from the fire makes the air thick and stagnant. The ward settles into a kind of stupor, a long, slow, collective groan. This is also the time when the dying happens. It is rarely dramatic. It is usually a quiet, gradual fading. A patient's breathing, which has been a constant, ragged sound for days, will simply become shallower and shallower until it stops. There is a final, gentle sigh, a release of the last bit of air. The struggle is over. Your job is to notice. You walk over, feel for a pulse that is no longer there, and then gently close the eyelids over the now dull, staring eyes. You pull the rough blanket up over their face. There is no ceremony. There is no moment of silence. The great groaning machine of the ward continues on, indifferent to the small, quiet departure of one of its parts. You then have to remove the body. You and another orderly lift the corpse, which is always surprisingly heavy, a dead weight of meat and bone. You carry it out of the main hall and down a short flight of stone steps to the dead house. This is a small, cold, windowless room, essentially a larder for the dead. You lay the body on a stone slab next to the others that have accumulated since the morning. Here, your final duty to them is to strip them of their clothes, which are washed and reused for new patients, and to search for any hidden coins or valuables which become the property of the hospital. It is a final pragmatic indignity. You then cover the body with a simple linen shroud. And sometimes, in the midst of all this death, you must deal with life. Agnes is still a midwife, and pregnant women from the city come to her. There is a small room, barely larger than a closet, set aside for births. It is a stark contrast to the main hall. Here, the sounds are not of groaning, but of grunting, of focused, animal effort. The air smells of sweat and birth fluids. You are sometimes called to assist, to hold a hand, to fetch more hot water, to witness the messy, bloody, miraculous business of a new soul entering this broken world. The cry of a newborn baby is a shocking alien sound in this house of endings. It is a sound of such ferocious, defiant life that it feels almost like a protest. But even this is fraught with peril. The mother is often malnourished and weak. The birth is long and difficult. The baby might be born blue and still, or the mother might begin to hemorrhage, her life's blood soaking the straw pallet in a matter of minutes. Agnes works with a calm, focused intensity, her hands moving with an ancient, practiced knowledge. But sometimes, even she can do nothing. You have seen a mother die while her newborn baby cries beside her. You have seen a perfectly healthy mother give birth to a child who will not live through the night. Each birth is a gamble, a desperate bet against the overwhelming odds of this new world. As the afternoon light begins to fade, your work shifts. You must now prepare the ward for the night. You bring in more firewood, stacking it high beside the hearth. You refill the water buckets. You light the tallow lamps and the rushlights, their weak, flickering flames casting long, dancing shadows that make the hall seem even more menacing and spectral. The change in light seems to affect the patients. The fevers often spike in the evening. The delirium of the typhus sufferers becomes more agitated, their muttering turning into shouts. The quiet despair of the day gives way to a more active, noisy form of misery. You make one final round with the gruel, a thin, unsatisfying supper. You offer a last sip of water. For the most agitated patients, or those in the most pain, Agnes will prepare a special tincture. It is a dark, bitter-smelling liquid made from poppy heads, a crude form of opium. It is not a cure. It is a chemical blanket, a way to muffle the screams and grant a few hours of stupefied, dreamless sleep. You administer it carefully, a few drops on the tongue. You watch as the patient's frantic energy subsides, their muscles relax, their eyes glaze over and close. You are not a healer, you are a jailer of consciousness, locking their minds away in a dark, quiet cell for the night. Before you can rest, there is one last journey to make. You must help the gravedigger, an old, stooped man named Silas, whose only companion is a bottle of cheap gin. The bodies from the dead house are loaded onto a simple, two-wheeled cart. You help him push it through the darkening streets, its wheels creaking a mournful complaint. The new cemetery is a sprawling, muddy field on the edge of the city, pockmarked with 1,000 fresh mounds of earth. There are no headstones here, only simple wooden markers, if that. Most of the dead are buried in long, deep trenches, the plague pits, their shrouded bodies laid side by side like rows of harvested vegetables. The work is grim and physical. The ground is hard and stony. The air is cold. Silas works in a stoic, gin-fueled silence, his shovel rising and falling with a steady, rhythmic grace. Scrape, thud, scrape, thud. It is the same rhythm as the miner's pickaxe, the same rhythm as the baker's hands, the sound of relentless, necessary labor. You do not speak of the people you are burying. They are no longer people. They are a problem of logistics and sanitation. You are not performing a sacred rite. You are disposing of hazardous waste. According to Silas, you are burying 50 a day, and the new cemetery, opened only 6 months ago, is already half full. You return to the hospital long after the curfew horn has sounded. The streets are empty and silent. The ward is a landscape of sleeping, moaning shadows. You find your own small pallet in a corner, as far from the sick as possible. You are too tired to eat. You are too tired to think. You lie down, and the sounds of the ward become a strange, disturbing lullaby, the wet cough of the consumptive, the delirious whispers of the fevered, the low, steady groan of a man with an infected wound, the scuttling of rats in the thatch. These are the sounds of your life now. You close your eyes, but the images of the day are burned onto the inside of your eyelids. The butcher's saw, the speckled face of the boy, the bright red blood on the rag, the empty eyes of the dead. You have learned that survival in this place is not about strength or cunning. It is about numbness. It is about building a thick, calloused wall around your heart, a wall that allows you to function, to carry the buckets and wipe the brows, without being drowned by the ocean of sorrow that surrounds you. You must become a machine, just like the looms in the textile mill. You are a cog in the great grinding apparatus of death. Your job is to make the process as orderly and efficient as possible. You are a janitor of human suffering. And as you finally drift off into a shallow, uneasy sleep, a single, terrifying thought circles in your mind. You are surrounded by disease, breathing it in, touching it, living in it. You are healthy now, but it is only a matter of time. One morning, you will wake up with the headache, or the cough, or the rash. And then, someone else will be bringing you a bowl of gray gruel. Someone else will be pulling the blanket over your face. And someone else will be pushing your body in a creaking cart to the muddy field on the edge of the city. But you cannot stay in the house of quiet sorrows forever, lest you become a permanent resident. You step out into the city, and the difference is jarring. Inside is the quiet, methodical business of dying. Out here is the loud, chaotic, and often absurd business of living. The conquerors may have shattered your temples and broken your laws, but they have not managed to destroy the intricate, invisible web of rules that truly governs your people. This is the world of superstitions, of social taboos, of the 1,001 things that are simply asterisks not done, a code of conduct that has become more important and more fiercely guarded than any imperial decree ever was. It is the ghost of a society, still haunting the streets, its chains rattling with every whispered rumor and sideways glance. The market square is the city's nervous system, and its currency is not the conqueror's iron coin but the whispered word. Here, rumors are born, grow into legends, and die in a single afternoon. You see a small crowd huddled around a man who is reading from a smuggled pamphlet, its cheap paper already turning yellow. He claims it's a transcription of a physician's secret journal, and it says that the conquerors are not as strong as they seem. Their northern blood, it alleges, is too thick for this southern climate, and that is why they are so prone to fits of rage and bouts of melancholy. The only cure, the pamphlet insists, is for them to avoid bathing, as water opens the pores and lets in the corrupting southern air. The crowd nods sagely. It makes a bizarre kind of sense, a medical explanation for their own subjugation that is far more comforting than the simple, brutal truth. This fear of bathing is a belief you all share, a cornerstone of your collective wisdom. A clean body, it is widely understood, is a vulnerable body. To wash with hot water is to open the gates of your personal fortress, inviting in every pestilence and miasma floating in the air. It is the 19th century equivalent of clicking on a suspicious email link. Instead, hygiene is a dry, aromatic affair. You see a woman of some former standing dabbing her neck and wrists with a cloth soaked in rose water and vinegar. The wealthy, or those who pretend to be, carry small pomanders, perforated metal balls filled with ambergris or cloves, which they hold to their noses when passing a particularly pungent pile of refuse. You all live in a delicate, personal ecosystem of sweat, grime, and perfume, a state of being that would send a modern health inspector into a dead faint. The city doesn't just look gray. It smells a uniform, musty brown. You see a funeral procession making its way down a side street, and it is a masterclass in social anxiety. The death was sudden, and therefore suspicious, and the spirit is likely to be restless. The procession moves quickly, not with solemn dignity, but with a hurried, fearful energy. The family members walk with their heads down, their faces covered, not just in grief, but in a desperate attempt to avoid catching the ghost's attention. The body on the simple wooden bier has 2 copper coins placed on its eyes, not as payment for a mythical ferryman, but as a practical measure to weigh the eyelids down and prevent the corpse from staring at a living person and marking them for death. A woman at the back of the procession stumbles, and a collective gasp goes through the small crowd. A stumble is a terrible omen, a sign that the deceased is trying to pull someone down with them. In stark contrast, a wedding is an act of grim, determined optimism, a bet against the apocalypse. You see one taking place in the cramped courtyard of a tenement. There is no fine music, no lavish feast. The bride wears a simple gray dress, her face pale and serious. The ceremony is a rapid-fire series of anti-disaster measures. The groom carries an iron nail in his pocket to ward off evil spirits. The bride has a pinch of salt sewn into the hem of her dress to ensure purity and a bit of bread for fertility. Before they step into their new home, a relative will sweep the threshold clean, not for cleanliness, but to brush away any lingering bad luck from the previous tenants. It is less a celebration of love and more a carefully orchestrated magical ritual designed to launch two people into a deeply uncertain future without immediately sinking. The tavern, once a place of boisterous camaraderie, has become a silent theater of shared misery. You sit in a dark corner, nursing a cup of the bitter, possibly poisonous beer. Men and women drink not to celebrate, but to forget. They do not speak in loud voices. Instead, they communicate in a language of shared glances, weary sighs, and the occasional muttered curse. Sometimes, a man in the corner will begin to sing. He will not sing the old patriotic anthems. To do so would be a death sentence. Instead, he sings the old love ballads, the sad songs of lost sailors and faithless shepherds. But everyone in the room knows he is not singing about a shepherd. He is singing about a dead emperor, about a lost city, about a world that exists now only in the melancholy notes of a half-remembered tune. Once a year, the city makes a desperate attempt at joy. It is the Feast of the Last Sheaf, a harvest festival that feels like a cruel joke in a time of widespread hunger. Still, the rituals must be observed. In the main square, a great effigy has been built, a man made of straw and old rags, representing the, quote, spirit of the harvest. He is paraded through the streets on a cart, followed by a small, pathetic procession of people banging pots and pans. The conquerors watch from the balconies, their expressions a mixture of amusement and contempt. At sundown, the straw man is set ablaze in a great bonfire. For a few moments, as the flames leap into the sky, you all stare into the fire, your faces illuminated by the light, and you are united in a single unspoken prayer that this symbolic sacrifice will be enough, that the real hunger will pass you by. The most powerful taboos are the ones that are never spoken of. You learn, for instance, never to comment on a person's good health. To say you're looking well today is to tempt fate, to draw the attention of the jealous, invisible spirits of sickness. It is like praising a pitcher for a no-hitter in the middle of the seventh inning. Instead, you learn to speak in negatives. You're not looking as ill as yesterday is the highest form of compliment. Likewise, you learn to hide your own ailments. A cough is muffled in a sleeve. A sudden pain is masked by a neutral expression. To admit to sickness is to admit to weakness, and in this city, weakness is an invitation for every kind of predator, both seen and unseen. People will avoid you, your landlord will find a reason to evict you, and you will find yourself on a fast track to the House of Quiet Sorrows. Childbirth is a private war, governed by its own set of sacred and terrifying rules. When a woman goes into labor, her birthing chamber becomes a fortress against the entire male world and a battlefield against the forces of darkness. You, as a man, would not be allowed within 100 feet of it. Inside, the midwife and female relatives will have untied every knot in the room, in ropes, in clothing, in hair, believing that a physical knot can create a spiritual one, hindering the baby's passage into the world. All doors and windows are covered, not to keep out a chill, but to prevent a malevolent spirit from flying in and stealing the baby's soul before it has a chance to properly settle in its new body. The process is a long, exhausting siege, and the women inside are the only soldiers. You see all of this, the frantic rituals, the whispered fears, the stubborn celebrations, and you realize what it is. It is the scaffolding of a ruined building. The structure itself is gone, the empire has fallen, the gods are silent, but the people are desperately trying to keep the shape of their old lives intact, even if it is just an outline. These beliefs and taboos are the only laws that still have any meaning, the only power you still collectively possess. It is a shared, functional madness, a quiet, stubborn insistence that your world is governed by more than just the conqueror's sword. It is a way of making sense of the senseless, a way of surviving not just the hunger and the violence, but the far more dangerous threat of utter, crushing meaninglessness. And yet, the world you knew could not remain in that state of suspended, superstitious terror forever. Change did not come from a hero with a shining sword, or from a prophet with a new vision. It came, as it so often does, in the form of a man with a ledger. The conquerors, you see, were brutal, but they were not stupid. They began to realize that their new asset, this great and sprawling city, was inefficient. The dead, after all, pay no taxes. The sick cannot quarry stone or weave cloth. The constant, low-grade poisoning of the workforce was, in the cold calculus of empire, simply bad for business. And so began the second conquest, not with fire and steel, but with ink, regulations, and the terrifying, dispassionate logic of the bureaucrat. The first war was declared not on your people, but on the filth. The new administrators, men with clean fingernails and a profound intolerance for inefficiency, looked at the overflowing gutters and the rampant disease, and they did not see divine punishment or evil spirits. They saw a logistical problem, and so the orders were given. Gangs of laborers, your people, were put to work digging the first true sewers, great stone arteries to carry the city's waste away. They organized the collection of refuse, decreeing that it must be taken to designated pits outside the walls. If you can walk down a city street today without wading through ankle-deep mud and human waste, if you can drink a glass of water without first boiling it in a panic, you can thank the cold, calculating self-interest of a long-dead tyrant who simply wanted his soldiers to stop dying of dysentery. From the streets, their gaze turned to the markets. An army, they knew, marches on its stomach, and their army was marching straight to the hospital ward. The quiet, desperate war of adulteration was brought to a sudden and public end. The first food inspectors appeared in the market square, men armed not with swords, but with scales, chemical kits, and the absolute authority of the state. They tested the flour for chalk, the beer for toxins, the meat for decay. A baker caught selling sawdust bread was not given a fine. He was put in a pillory in the main square, the offending loaf tied around his neck, a public monument to the new era of enforced purity. If today you can bite into a fresh loaf of bread without a moment's fear, if you can trust that the food you buy will nourish you rather than poison you, you are living in the quiet shadow of a gallows that was built for a butcher who tried to pass off rotten meat as fresh. The violence of the workplace also became a target of this new cold reason. The overseers at the textile mill were given new orders. Guards were to be installed on the most dangerous parts of the looms. The owner of the mine was commanded to spend more on timber supports for the tunnels. This was not born of a sudden compassion for the lives of the workers. It was a simple calculation of asset management. A weaver with both her hands is more productive than one without. A live miner can dig more coal than a dead one. Your body was no longer just a vessel for your soul. It was a piece of capital, an investment that the state now had an interest in protecting. Every workplace safety sign, every hard hat, every pair of steel-toed boots in your modern world is a distant, civilized echo of a conqueror's decree that it was simply too expensive to keep replacing the help. These changes, imposed by force and motivated by greed, had a strange and unintended consequence. They began to dismantle the invisible scaffolding of superstition that had held your world together. When the new sewers stopped the summer cholera outbreaks, people slowly, almost imperceptibly, stopped blaming the miasmas and the evil spirits that were said to rise from the river fog. When the inspected bread no longer caused crippling stomach pains, the market for magical charms against poison began to dry up. The cold, hard, verifiable magic of sanitation and regulation proved to be far more powerful than the desperate, whispered magic of your ancestors. This was the final and perhaps most profound conquest, not the capture of your city, but the capture of your reality itself, replacing a world governed by spirits and omens with one governed by cause and effect. And so, the world you knew did not truly end. It was transformed, painfully and without your consent, into the foundation of something new. The great, chaotic, vibrant, and terrifyingly dangerous city of your youth was slowly tamed, brick by brick, law by law. Its legacy is the world you, the listener, now inhabit. The quiet order, the assumed safety, the simple, unthinking trust you place in the world around you, that your food is safe, that your workplace will not kill you, that your street is clean, was purchased at a terrible price by people you will never know. They were the survivors, the miners and bakers, the weavers and carters, the ghosts who walked the conquered streets. They endured the end of their world so that you could be comfortable in yours. And now, their story is over. The dust has settled. The noise has faded. There is only the quiet of the present moment. Breathe it in. Let the long day go. There is nothing left to do now but rest.